Aho, brothers of the axe. It's Joe. I'm out on the bench tonight, guys, and I have a very special Father's Day episode for you. So, been chatting a little bit in the live feeds about a super secret build that I'm doing here, and this will be the first time I'm revealing it, which it should actually be Father's Day as you guys watch this now. Hopefully, everything has gone right, and we've put the build together, and I've already presented it to my dad, and hopefully he likes it. So what we're going to go over in this episode here is some intermediate to advanced finishing techniques. I've already fit this axe down. I've already put a final sand on it, so most of the contact has already been sanded away. There's no shelf. This is ready to hang, this handle. So it's ready to hang. It's sanded to a 220 grit. What we're going to go over tonight is iron acetate, my process, how I like to do it. And we're also going to go over the three-piece Neapolitan wedge that I've been doing a lot lately. I went over this in a live stream a couple weeks back, but I figured it actually might be a little bit more searchable and nice to have, a long-form video on doing this technique. It's not crazy hard or anything like that, but again, it's what I would consider to be a bit more of an advanced hafting technique, finishing technique, etc. So I'm going to take you through that process. And what we're going to be hafting with this 28 rugs is from the last run of the Bit and Bark Dingoes. This is Dingo Pup. This is the Super Dingo, actually. This one has a 5.5-inch bit, just by the luck of the draw. I received this one to give to my father. So, yep, the Super Dingo. And we're putting it on the 28 rugs. I have modified this 28 rugs slightly. The 28 rugs, in my opinion, is one of the best working axe handles you can get. But especially with the mods that I like to do, where I thin out the back half and I undercut the swell just a bit more, man, this is a nice working handle. Just a very, very accurate swinging. It makes you a better axeman than you are. Makes you look good. So I'm going to put this rugs on this Dingo Pup here, and come along with me, guys, as we get it done and get this Father's Day build complete. All right, guys. So we are going to iron acetate this handle. Now, there are plenty of good tutorials out there on YouTube on how to make iron acetate. We're not going to go into that. But basically, the long and short of it is, it's just vinegar of whatever concentration you choose with iron dissolved in it. Easiest way to do it is steel wool. Just regular old steel wool. Usually takes about 6 or 7 days to brew up. You may know this as vinegaroon. A lot of old timers will refer to this as vinegaroon. I used to refer to it as vinegaroon. But iron acetate seems to be the, in sort of the zeitgeist right now of, what everyone's calling it. So iron acetate finish is basically just it's a chemical reaction that acts as sort of a wood stain. It messes with the tannins in the wood and will, depending on the type of wood, with like oaks, let's just say, it ebonizes it. With hickory, it turns it a really, really nice, sort of vintagey, antique patina brown. This iron acetate is at the end of its life cycle. So it's going to produce what I believe to be a lighter finish, which I'm actually kind of going for with this handle. Iron acetate has its pros and its cons, as everything does. Iron acetate will hide sort of imperfections and things like that in the grain pretty well, in my opinion. But the one thing that it will do is it will reveal any finishing, any sanding flaws, any tool marks. It will reveal them pretty significantly. So if you're planning on iron acetating a handle and you want to have it looking really good, make sure you do your due diligence when sanding. Make sure everything is nice and even. Try to get rid of any tooling marks if you don't want those to be very present. I have done as good a job as I can to even out this finish up to a 220. I have this 220 and clean steel wool pad. Hit it one more time, give it a quick burnish before applying the iron acetate. Make sure you're using a paintbrush that you don't care about. This is now going to be your designated iron acetate paintbrush. It will destroy the bristles for sure. So keep that in mind. You want to have a couple things. Like I say, you want to have a paintbrush. You want to make sure you got good steel wool, as we'll go over in the process. A heat gun helps. You can let it air dry if you want. It's just going to take you, a lot longer to air dry it. The heat gun helps facilitate the chemical reaction as well. I've had better success using a heat gun. So anyways, just liberally apply your iron acetate finish. And as this gets into the end of its life cycle, it'll actually apply more color to the handle initially than it will when it's brand new. When it's brand new, it actually will put kind of almost like a gray finish on the handle until you hit it with oil. So the stronger it is, actually the less sort of browny, orange, yellow sort of patina color you're going to get initially, which is interesting. In my experience anyways, this is all in my experience. So I like to do even the tongue, but I also like to finish my handles before the head is hung. You don't have to. You certainly could finish afterwards, but you'll probably notice like a delineation where the head is hung. It may not take the iron acetate the same way, and you might get some kind of weird bleeding. Ask me how I know. As far as the top of the handle, a lot of times you're going to wind up cutting that anyways, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to do it. I like to wear at least one glove when doing this, because this stuff will stain your skin, and it's not the easiest to get off. So, once you've applied your first generous coat, you want to take the heat gun and dry this sucker out. And through the magic of editing, we will fast forward through the boring part. All right, guys. So we've gotten our first coat of iron acetate done. I think I'm going to do at least 3 coats on this one. But once your iron acetate is dry, you'll feel the grain raised, just like any other finishing of wood. When you wet it down, whether you hit it with a tack cloth or whatever it is, when you get wood wet, it sort of raises the grain again. So what we're going to come in and do is using clean steel wool. You can experiment and use like nasty steel wool and add a little color into the process. For this one, I want it looking clean, clean and nice and sort of newish. So I'm going to use a brand new steel wool pad and just come in and burnish. Stains the gloves pretty well. So you're going to end up with kind of like I'll tell you what, when the iron acetate is real fresh, you wind up with a purple hue when it dries, interestingly. That goes away after you add oil. But this thing is going to look worse before it looks better, the iron acetate anyways. It kind of winds up looking a little chalky, a little milky, but once you hit this stuff with some oil, man, does it pop. And it's a very cool process too, because it's kind of like the box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get. You can only, sort of hope for a certain finish and do things, maybe to steer a finish the way you want it to go. But nothing's ever really set in stone with this chemical reaction here. The wood, it's very dependent on the wood. It's very dependent on the grain, etc., etc. So no 2 iron acetated handles are ever going to look the same. You could also flame the handle a little bit if you want to pop the grain. That's that's the art about this whole axe thing, is how everyone chooses to add their little spin. And already here you can see the grain is taking it a little darker on one side than the other. So when you do this type of finish, you just kind of have to be prepared with, be prepared to accept that it may not be a perfectly symmetrical, perfectly even finish, but that's the beauty of it. So I'm not going to make you guys sit here and watch me iron acetate this thing at least 2 more rounds. So I am going to turn the camera off and finish this up, and I will get back to you once we are all said and done, and we'll pop this with a little oil so you can see, and then we'll work on our wedging. All right there, guys. So we've done our 3 rounds of iron acetate. 3 is usually the magic number in my experience. So now I'm going to just take it and hit it with a final burnishing. And I didn't elaborate as to what burnishing was, but essentially what you're doing is you're looking to take this quadruple lot steel wool, by the way, very fine steel wool, and you're just trying to kind of put a little bit of a polish on the wood. So as I said, this iron acetate is going to get the wood kind of chalky, kind of dull, and you want to knock as much of that sort of chalky, milky finish off as you can. And like I say, just kind of put a polish to it. Just really with the last go around, really make sure to knock off all that rust, dust, whatever that is, that sort of chemical reaction, and put just a fine burnishing on here. So with this 3-piece wedge, I don't do any guessing games or anything like that. What I do is I fit the main wedge, right? And then I will put my spacer wedge in there and use a very fine pencil, mark off where the space for the secondary wedge has to be, and then cut my 2 front and back wedges from there, right? So I'm not doing any measurements or anything like that. I'm literally just fitting it as I go. So step 1 will be cut the primary wedge. We're going to call this the primary and that the secondary. We're going to cut the primary wedge to fit to size. Good tool for the job is a real fine-tipped mechanical pencil. You want something with precision. Right. And then once we split our wedge for the centerpiece, we're going to index our wedge. And I like to put indexing arrows as such, and I like to put F for front and B for back, just like so. All right, so we're just going to keep it set up on the vise just to make things easy. And again, nothing too crazy here. I'm just going to lay my secondary wedge over my primary wedge about where I want to see that transition. And again, with just a very fine drafting pencil, I'm going to go in and trace out either side. The reason why I mark the indexing mark in the back wedge is so that our grain orientation doesn't flip-flop. I've had that happen before. Our grain lines are running this way. And if I were to flip-flop that back wedge, I'd have grain running this way on one side and this way on the other side. Now you could use that to your advantage if that's what you want, but I want a nice consistent grain pattern. I've made my lines, and what I'm going to do is when I make my bandsaw cuts, I'm going to cut inside the lines so that I actually have thicker wedges than what I need. Because the one thing you really want to make sure of is your mating surfaces are as flat as possible. That's how you wind up with little gaps in the top, is if you wind up having non-flat surfaces that don't marry together really well. All right, guys, so we've got our secondary dry fit, and we're looking pretty good. The mating surfaces are pretty square. Now you'll have to remember too, there's no handle in here, so the kerf is going to actually hold these a little straighter than just floating inside the eye. But I'm pretty happy with the mating surfaces on these pieces of wood here. This should be good. Now, nothing's ever perfect. You may wind up getting a little tiny gap here or there. they usually disappear after some oiling. So I think we are ready to hang this sucker, guys. Right, guys, so we got our wedge fit into place here in the handle, which is in the axe eye. And I'm going to just get it started here. Actually, before we do anything, you know what? I almost forgot. Let's get this kerf oiled up a little bit. Just get a little BLO down there. Nice and lubricated here. Now with this hardwood wedges, they do have a tendency to want to pop out on you. So you really want to make sure that the taper fits very well to the eye. You don't want a taper that's way too quick. You want a nice gradual taper. I've thinned these wedges out pretty significantly. Got a little cracking going on in the front of the tongue here, which happens from time to time. The nice thing about the three-piece wedge, as opposed to one piece, is you can really drive certain areas home. Wedges tend to crack sometimes anyways. But with this, you can kind of control that. One of the little tricks that I found too for driving the center wedge without really hammering on the other two is I take my little punch, my little eye drift, put it over the center one, drive that sucker home. Got a good tight fit on these guys. I don't want to get overzealous and really risk cracking anything, or, you know, I see that there's like some minor checking going on in the handles, but we've got some really good compression. Really good compression in this wedge job. We've got a lot of wedge in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this flush, and I'm going to see how we're looking. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's switch the camera angle and put some oil on this thing. So at this point, what I like to do is take a very fine rasp and match the contour of the wedge to the back of the tongue. Just kind of round that out a little bit. It's the fine finishing details, I think, that kind of really set a build off. And then simultaneously, I like to go around the eye, clean up the saw marks. You can see here we got a little bit of checking in the handle, and that's just because of the pressure, the immense pressure of this big thick wedge. Again, just put a nice little chamfer around the top of that handle. Super excited to give this to my dad. I really think he's gonna enjoy this. I really think he's gonna be surprised too. I know he's been, ever since I showed him my dingo, he really thought it was cool. From what I understand, this may be the last dingo run for a while. So, you know, these are significant. They're, you know, they may not be a thing moving forward. So, you know, this could be one of the last dingoes ever produced. But so, with that being said, I'm gonna call this done. And let's throw a little oil on this sucker. Bloop. Ooh yeah. That Paduke really, really takes the oil very nicely. Alright guys. So, you know, I'm going to take this mask off. I'm going to be very delicate and ginger with this because this is absolutely hair shaving sharp. Honecker ships these things scary, dangerous, ridiculously sharp. But I think it's important to show how freaking cool this axe is, man. The Super Dingo. Let's get some oil on this thing. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention too. I cut the tongue angular to match the angle that upswept angle of the head. I thought that was a good idea. Pretty happy with the way that turned out. So some oil already ran down the handle, so we're not going to get that grain reveal. Ooh, buddy, I just slathered that all over my... Yeah, the bench needed it. The bench needed it anyways. But yeah, look how this takes the oil, this iron acetate. Isn't that nice? Man. Look at that. Well, guys, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. To any of you guys out there who are fathers, happy Father's Day to you. And to my dad, happy Father's Day. Appreciate everything you do and continue to do for me and my brother. And our spouses and your grandchildren. You know, honestly, can't put it into words how much I appreciate my dad, and he's one of the channel's biggest fans and bigger supporters too. So, you know, I try to model, you know, myself as a father after how my dad, you know, was growing up. So try to work hard, try to give my child, you know, everything that she wants, and, you know, working hard, trying to provide, you know, the best possible life for my kid as my parents did for me. So, you know, once again, happy Father's Day, Dad. And can't forget Mom too. You know, obviously we had Mother's Day, but, you know, didn't build Mom an axe for Mother's Day. So, you know, we just took Mom out to breakfast. But yeah, we did an axe for Dad for, maybe next year we'll do one for Mom for Mother's Day. Maybe a kitchen axe for her. But, yep, guys, keep the axe waxed. All you dads out there, take it easy. Let your family dote on you today. And, yeah, Dad, I hope you like this. I know you will. I know you appreciate stuff like this. So, keep it waxed. Use it in good health. Don't hurt yourself because, like I said, man, this thing is a freaking weapon. So, stay tuned, guys. I will see you on the next one. Take care.